Iran launched a series of ballistic missiles at Israel today in retaliation for Israel's military campaign against Tehran's ally Hezbollah in Lebanon. Alarms blared across Israel as explosions were heard in Jerusalem and the Jordan River Valley, prompting residents to seek refuge in bomb shelters. State television reporters were seen lying flat on the ground during live broadcasts. A U.S. State Department spokesperson yesterday said Israel had informed the U.S. that it was conducting limited ground operations focused on Hezbollah infrastructure near the border. President Joe Biden said he was aware of Israel's plans to launch an operation into Lebanon, and he urged against such a move. "We should have a ceasefire now," he said. U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin said he had spoken to his Israeli counterpart and the pair had agreed on the necessity of dismantling attack infrastructure along the border with Lebanon. He also said he had made clear that the United States is well postured to defend U.S. personnel, partners and allies in the face of threats from Iran and Iran-backed terrorist organizations. The U.S. is sending a few thousand troops to the Middle East to bolster security to defend Israel if necessary, the Pentagon said yesterday. The increased presence will involve multiple fighter jet and attack aircraft squadrons. The additional forces would raise the total number of troops in the region to as many as 43,000. According to Israeli Army radio, almost 200 missiles were fired into Israel from Iran earlier. Iran's Revolutionary Guard stated that tens of missiles had been launched, warning that if Israel retaliated, Tehran's response would be even more crushing and ruinous. Later, Israel's military declared an all-clear, allowing residents to leave their shelters. A military spokesperson noted that there were no reported injuries from the Iranian missile attacks. They described the incident as serious and emphasized that it would have consequences. A senior Iranian official said the missile launch order came from the country's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, who remains in a secure location. Missiles were intercepted over neighboring Jordan. A previous round of Iranian missile strikes in April, its first ever strike on Israel, was successfully intercepted with the assistance of U.S. military and other allies. Israel responded at that time with airstrikes in Iran, although broader escalation was avoided. The Israeli and U.S. governments said a combination of air, sea and ground-launched missiles destroyed nearly all of the hundreds of weapons Iran sent towards Israel. U.S. Central Command, which oversees military operations in the region, said U.S. forces destroyed more than 80 drones and at least 6 ballistic missiles. Israel has been honing its air defenses since enduring Iraqi Scud missile salvos in the 1991 Gulf War. That work resulted in a multi-layered air defense network linked by central control nodes. The outer layers of the Arrow 2 and Arrow 3 systems, designed to intercept ballistic missiles fired from thousands of miles away. The Arrow 2 is optimized for destroying missiles in the atmosphere, while Arrow 3 can hit them while they are coasting in space. Both are meant to minimize the chance that warheads or payloads from the destroyed targets cause any harm on the ground. Israel's Iron Dome was built to intercept the kind of low-tech rockets fired by the Palestinian Islamist movement Hamas in Gaza. It became operational in 2011. Each truck-towed unit can direct radar-guided missiles against short-range threats such as rockets, mortars and drones. Iran vowed retaliation after Israeli airstrikes killed senior members of Hezbollah in Lebanon, including its leader Hassan Nasrallah, a prominent figure in Iran's network of regional fighters. Israel stated its troops had conducted ground raids into Lebanon, though the incursions were described as limited. In Washington, U.S. President Joe Biden announced the United States was prepared to assist Israel in defending itself from Iranian missile attacks. We discussed how the U.S. is prepared to help Israel defend against these attacks and protect American personnel in the region, Biden said, referring to a meeting with Vice President Kamala Harris and the White House National Security Team earlier in the day. Meanwhile, the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres condemned the ongoing escalation, stating, "This must stop. We absolutely need a ceasefire." While Israel has characterized its current ground campaign as limited, a large-scale invasion of Lebanon for the first time in 18 years will represent a significant escalation. It will pit Israeli soldiers against Hezbollah, the most well-armed of Iran's proxy forces in the Middle East. Over 1,000 Lebanese have been killed and 1 million have fled their homes during recent weeks of intense Israeli airstrikes. On Tuesday, Israel announced the assassination of a senior Hezbollah commander, Mohammed Jafar Qasir, who it described as being responsible for weapons transfers from Iran and its affiliates. Many Lebanese residents expressed their determination to resist Israeli forces. Meanwhile, in Beirut, Israel targeted high-rise buildings in the Jannah area and southern suburbs, briefly closing the road to the airport. The Israeli military described its actions as a precise strike. Israel has consistently stated that it will do whatever it takes to secure its northern border and allow tens of thousands of Israelis to return to their towns from which they fled since the outbreak of war in Gaza a year ago. Hezbollah had begun firing across the border in solidarity with Palestinians in Gaza. Israel does have a history of conflict in Lebanon, which it invaded in 1982 during Lebanon's civil war. Israeli troops withdrew in 2000, but another major war with Hezbollah occurred in 2006. Since then, the border blue line has been monitored by the United Nations. UN peacekeepers reported seeing sporadic Israeli incursions, but did not observe a full-scale invasion. Hezbollah, a Shiite militia formed by Iran to resist Israeli forces in Lebanon, has evolved into the most powerful armed force in the country, possessing a substantial arsenal of missiles and rockets. It's also Lebanon's most influential political party and leads a network of Iranian-backed armed groups across the Middle East. In Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu's right-wing and far-right coalition allies have voiced strong support for the country launching ground operations in southern Lebanon, shoring up a key constituency of his government as he seeks to trumpet his recent attack against the Iran-backed Hezbollah. Domestic and Western observers have noted that Netanyahu's position in Israeli politics, commonly cited as an important element of his support for military operations against Hamas and Hezbollah, appears at its most solid since October 7th. I'm Anthony Davis. You can catch me on the 5 Minute News YouTube channel and podcast, on Wednesdays co-hosting Uncovered, and on Sunday on The Weekend Show with Midas Touch.